Hello and welcome to Faultlines. I'm your host Shahzad Raza. President Trump had a meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. A statement issued after the meeting contained blatant lies and accusation against Pakistan. The statement read that Pakistan should stop harboring terrorism. That is contrary to the fact that Pakistan fought a longest war against terrorism. Not only Pakistan achieved so many successes, but it was noted and underlined not only by Committee of Nations but the United Nations itself. India, in a bid to hide its own failure and state-sponsored terrorism, always throw mud on Pakistan, trying to cobble a relationship that it wants to use against Pakistan. The fact is, this meeting portrayed by Indian media, that is pro-Modi, as a success of Modi administration. However, the independent Indian journalists, they questioned several failures or the steps that Narendra Modi failed to take while he was meeting with the US president. For instance, concession in the tariff, as US has decided to impose tariff on several nations, especially its big trading partners. The issue of immigrants. However, the US president also announced selling state-of-the-art aircraft F-35 to India. The Pakistan's Foreign Office stated not only rejected the statement issued after the joint press conference by the US president and Indian prime minister, but the intended sale of arms to India, the Foreign Office stated it would create imbalance in the region, and it would indulge the nation in another arms race. Recently, the United Nations Security Council issued a report in which it categorically stated that Afghan Taliban are sponsoring not only TTP but other terror outfits which are operating from Afghanistan. That is another failure of the United States administration, that it left Afghanistan in haste without taking into consideration several key aspects, and now Afghanistan has become another breeding ground of terrorism. So India, using its proxies against Pakistan, which are of course operating from Afghanistan and elsewhere in the world, and our Foreign Office not only highlighted this fact, but also India's strategy to eliminate its enemies in extrajudicial claim across its border. So these are the key areas we are going to focus in this program. And in the studio, I'm joining by Dr. Ayesha Malik. She's an academic and foreign affairs expert. Thank you so much, Dr. Ayesha, for joining us. Amer Durrani, he's a very known economist, is also joining us and also speaking on the issues of international relations. Thank you very much, Ahmad Durrani Saab. And very soon we'll also be joining by Mustafa, Hyder Sayyed, and General Raza Muhammad Khan. Dr. Ayesha, this meeting between the US President and Indian Prime Minister, that's not a first meeting, of course. They had this bromance in the first term of President Trump. Do you think that Narendra Modi would definitely use this opportunity or the aftermath of the meeting to leverage against Pakistan, to accuse Pakistan, or to raise the bar, as they say?
Thank you so much. Well, of course, the meeting is quite significant, and there have been some remarkable developments with regards to Indo-US relations, and of course its implications for Pakistan and the region largely, and geopolitics also. So Modi's endeavors largely represent two frameworks. One is the domestic framework, in which Modi is trying to seal some very significant deals for India, which involves strategic, defense-related, as well as economic leveraging. And it is also trying to leverage the influence which India is building through its trade policy with the United States of America on Pakistan. So it is definitely to be seen that how is it going on, and especially this previous episode of the immigrants being deported from the United States of America, and very significantly in a military plane. So that was enough signaling that how India would respond to it. But there is very clear hypocrisy in the policy from Modi towards USA, that despite being inflicted with this humiliation, India has been silent on this. So Pakistan and the rest of the world is looking towards these two, that how are they going to deal with this very humanitarian issue, and how are they going to just be silent on this humanitarian issue?
No, but the thing is, at one hand, the countries like United States States, they portray them as a champion of human rights and democracy. But on the other hand, for instance, the United States of America, they are backing two states, India, Israel. Both are not only sponsoring, but actually, implementing the state-sponsored terrorism.
Absolutely. This is the hypocrisy of the rule-based order, and in that the two largest democracies of the world who have this narrative of sustaining human rights. So the way they are violating this human rights in terms of immigration, in terms of job market, in terms of regional imbalance, this is remarkable, and this is just astonishing for everyone, all the analysts throughout the world, to see that how they are inflicting all these miseries upon the people at the very grassroots level, and they're absolutely silent on that.
Very right. General Raza Muhammad Khan has also joined us. He's a senior defense analyst. Thank you very much, General Raza Saab, for joining us. Let me ask a question with Amer Durrani, and then I'll come to you. Amer Durrani Saab, they both, Indian Prime Minister and the US President, decided to increase the trade volume up to $500 billion by 2030. Is it achievable, or is just a figure for public consumption?
I mean, thank you very much, Shahzad. Let me first start with a couple of things, right? So trade volumes of 500 billion is very definitely achievable. There is a deeper linkage to this than people are seeing, actually. If you remember the U2I2, which is basically the two United Emirates, USA, Israel, and India, that had kind of, well, but what we are seeing happening in Israel today, just add to that the IMEC, which is the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, for which obviously whatever's been proposed happening in Gaza is part of that. Now we may have to realize the world has an economic reality. Why is the IMEC being put in place? Why has it been slowly crawling along but still now rearing its head occasionally? Primarily for this trade to happen. And why? So the entire workplace, the entire workforce, America would like to shift from China down into India, because Vietnam does not have that capacity. Now, at 2,400 currently GDP per capita, India is much poorer than China. China is hovering around 5,000 something. Now, remember, the population difference between both of them is actually just about 200 million, right? So it's not that big a deal. It's like a half of Pakistan, right? But at the same time, because of wages and labor wages and being lower, India having the skill which Modi has to thank Nehru for and the technical universities for. So India has a very skilled workforce. Almost everybody speaks English. So what better production center for now can you have? This also helps them bargain with China in the future, right? If you look at China, you will also see that China's own, let's take the example of car exports, right? So now China is, if it goes at the rate it's going by 2030, there are predictions that it will be singly the world's largest exporters of vehicles. But guess where those vehicles are not going? India, right? So with the imposition of tariffs, with everything, I think the main thing that Trump has done this time, and Modi has done very cleverly, is that I think they have actually negotiated a future for India. And so I think we need to be very wary of this. There are political implications, there are defense implications on this. And I think one of the things we need to be very wary of, if an F-35 factory or assembly or some sort of US presence comes, then we are basically bringing one of our friends into the arms, or we are taking our enemy into the arms of our friend. And therefore, most of our classified secrets are with this particular entity.
With all these statements and signaling, you think that President Trump was actually signaling China, that India is a partner, and the containment of China policy? So
one of the things, Shahzad, we need to be very careful, no matter how. Trump is an agent of change, like Musk, like everybody. Doesn't matter. The American president does not speak only by himself or herself, right? Unfortunately, there's not been a her as yet. But basically, what we keep forgetting is that the American establishment is very, very deep and very, very strong. That's why it can take an Obama, it can take a Kennedy, it can take a Roosevelt, it can take currently Trump. But Trump is currently, in the TikTok age, the harbinger of the narrative wars. And so in another way of looking at it is, the days of looking at human rights and democracy are long gone. time is to understand the way world is unfolding in the start of the 21st century. And remember, the start of centuries always is a herald of what is going to happen towards the middle
Right,
and low.
right. Jan Saab, we know the policy of Narendra Modi for too long, and now President Trump is in the White House, termed as one of the most unpredictable leaders in the world. Should we be worried, Pakistan as a state?
Okay, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I think you are referring to what has transpired in the latest meeting in the United States between Modi and Trump, where one can very clearly see, that the butcher of Gujarat was there and he was being welcomed there. We recall that he was denied the visa for killing Muslims there, but that has also been conveniently forgotten. And they also know that he has committed war crimes in not only in Kashmir but elsewhere against all the minorities of India, and that he is an international terrorist because he has been ordering killings, uh, including the US, Canada, Australia, Pakistan, and all that is well recorded. And I'm surprised how the State Department joints, communique could include or point out Pakistan's commitment or Pakistan's involvement in any kind of terrorist activities. So obviously, the Foreign Office has replied correctly to that, that was a one-sided kind of a statement. It was uncalled for, and I think it is never going to be helpful in issuing such statements. Coming back to what you said about Modi, I think it is countries like the United States which is now endangering peace in South Asia, particularly in the subcontinent, because there was already the strategic imbalance was there in terms of conventional weapons and equipment and armed forces between India and Pakistan. And with the new
Jan
deals,
Saab, one question. When we say that endangering peace in any particular region, what do we mean by that exactly? Because India, Pakistan, China, all three, they are nuclear powers. Of course, India, China, they have their own border disputes. Pakistan, India, our own rivalry. The question is, when we say that peace is going to be disturbed, what does actually it mean, and what could be the outcome of it?
okay, so that is what I was trying to explain. Whatever has now been offered to India, I think it is going to seriously disturb the balance of power in the region. India already had a very belligerent attitude towards Pakistan and also in the past towards China and other countries. And it will be encouraged much more now to continue with that aggressive and belligerent mode. It is going to give rise to some kind of an arms race in South Asia, which is not good, either for India or for Pakistan or other development countries. I think the States needs to remember
We, main,
Indian actions in the past.
we maintain a credible nuclear deterrence. So there is no chance of any, sort of a full-scale conflict between the two nuclear powers. The question is, this arm race, how it is going to result exactly? Is just the spending, or you think that they can again actually come eyeball to eyeball?
Well, I think the outcome has been seen in the world. They know what India did, when they attacked Balakot, and they also know our response. So that is
Right.
very clear. And that if India is given an additional edge over Pakistan, such kinds of, adventurism is going to be encouraged. And obviously, then Pakistan will be compelled to respond the way it did to Balakot, and that could spiral out of control. At the same time, they must remember what is happening in Kashmir. And, rather than trying to resolve the issue
Right.
of Kashmir, which is the core issue of differences between India and Pakistan, I think they actually made a reference to, the indirect reference to terrorism emanating from Kashmir, which is very, very unfortunate. And you know, they have been now offered some weapons like the F-35, for which India did not even ask, and
Exactly.
long.
Jal Sahab, I come back to you on this. Dr. Ayesha, whenever they write the joint statements or the people in the US State Department or Indian Foreign Office, don't they check facts or they deliberately try to twist the facts? Because the recent UN Security Council report, they say that in Afghanistan, from Afghanistan, TTP organized mastermind and then implemented more than 600 attacks inside Pakistan. So we are basically facing the brunt what others have done, the mistakes of others we are paying for in terms of the money, in terms of the human lives. So when they say that Pakistan should do more against terrorism, what more can we do exactly?
Exactly. So you see, this is probably the very inbuilt fault with the system. Whatever system is in place, it is essentially and continuously, persistently, rather supporting a specific group which is constructing this discourse around who is doing what. So we don't just see it in terms of defense and strategy, but if you also look at the economic side of the relationship, this has been the case, and I think there is another very important factor which is trying to influence all these dynamics of strategic and economic relationship of the region between the countries and across the region among the countries. This is a factor and an aspect of Mr. Elon Musk, I think. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the way Elon Musk has institutionalized himself and the whole economic empire has institutionalized itself. If we try to deconstruct why India or USA and all these countries are maybe overlooking the facts is because of the system which is in place, and this has been in place since end of Second World War, the very famous rule-based order and the global economic governance, global political and defense governance of the world. In this system, this has been a persistent pattern where inequality is justified in one way or the other. And this inequality, in the name of this inequality, Trump is imposing all these tariffs. Look at how Trump and India and China and Mexico and Canada, all these countries are responding to the trade and tariff war of the current period. So I think that the fact-checking part, and I also want to respond to your 500 billion question, that the fact-checking part is definitely missing. Why is that so? Because certain parameters and certain structure has to be sustained by hook or by crook. So probably it's all effort going in that manner. So coming to another question which I really want to address here is the $500 billion question. So are they really going to, do they really have plans to finalize that deal, and how would it end up? So there has been an issue of sustainability of inward FDI from USA to India. So there hasn't been any sustainable pattern of the money which is coming in, because in 2021 it was $10 billion and in 2023 it was $6 billion. So sustainable number is required. So in all this, how this very unnatural probably framework which India and USA and all the great powers of the world are constructing to maybe subside one and maybe influence the other. It has been a persistent pattern. So we don't really see any change, be it a period of populism, nationalism, be it a period of democracy or dictatorship, but the change, the agents of change, as you were saying, they have not really culminated change, have they?
All right, Ahmed Durrani, now the US administration and the kind of image they already built for themselves is the people say that this is the administration which will ask the world that show us the money first. And they are going to base their relationship to any country, any state on a hardcore economic interest. Is that true?
Well, I mean, you have to be very careful about this question, and I'll tell you why. It was not until the US was dragged into a war across the big pond, the Atlantic, right, and who basically Europe, UK drove, basically dragged US into a war, and then Pearl Harbor happened, and that sealed the nail in the coffin, and US was involved. US financed the entire war and then imposed a Marshall Plan, if you recall, where everything had to be bought from General Electric, from a bulb to everything, having destroyed the Braun and the Rhine industrial giants in Germany. Where is US heading again? We need to understand the psyche of US of A. The US of A is an island of xenophobic people. From its founding fathers down, they want to live alone because they went there to live alone, away from the church, right? So essentially, the result of USA, if you get into the ethos of USA, look at the Constitution of USA, it's about personal independence.
No, but
the personal independence.
What about the diversity and stuff?
No, hold on. Quickly, I'll get there. The personal independence is imbued in the country's independence, right? So that's why push comes to shove, US always looked inward. Right, and it needs not look outward, it just needs to rebalance its economy, and you'll find it has everything it needs. We write a constitution, we write a rule, and the people who write these rules. So what the US has been doing, and we have not really understood what it does at home. How many reports have you heard where they've actually looked at crime rates in US, that actually looks at, maternal mortality, poverty? It never gets to see the world. The rate, the way the US treated its own inhabitants, the American Indians, I mean, they still live in reservations. Look at what Canada did to the Inuits, right? So I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm saying the hypocrisy lies in us, that we start believing that there is a profit out there in the name of US of A and a rights-based order without forgetting our own, remembering what our own values are. Our entire value system today is imbued with, as Ayesha very rightly said, this rights-based, the rule-based order, the Washington consensus, everything emanating from the West. And on this, I don't want to waste your time, but, Iqbal wrote about this many, many years ago, right?
Yeah, but again, my question, United States of America under Trump administration is going to interact with, the entire world. But their interaction, do you think, is based on hardcore economic interest? I mean, we say that there were administration in the United States which obviously they were, trying to, or at least claiming to implement so-called morals and the human rights laws everywhere, and even they talk about. But President Trump, as we have seen him, I mean, he never stops or never ceases to,
Understood. No, I'm sorry I didn't get to that very quickly, but let me then bring back one point, the India question, because it links to your question, are US interests completely economic? No country's interests are completely economic, right? The US also believes it's the Calvinistic shining city on the hill, okay? This is imbued again in the ethos of the US of A. So essentially what they are trying to do is use economics as a weapon. Now the 500 billion question, do you know the India's present trade is? I just checked, it's $1.6 trillion. In another 23, the forecast is $2.23 trillion. What is our total trade? 100, right? What is the GDP difference? 1,000? So I think we need to, instead of worrying about what the rest of the world is doing, India is very soon, through this economic game, so-called 500 billion, put us in the same place that we put ourselves in the case of East Pakistan. We have nobody surrounding us today.
So
if we play the rules of the West.
Very right. So you think, and we should teach and understand ourselves that we must not look towards United States of America as some sort of a big brother, but we need to deal with the USA as an entity, as a state, which would definitely safeguard and prefer to safeguard its own interest first.
But what is US's interest in Pakistan?
This is what I'm asking.
No, but I mean, I think this question should be asked back, because I think the US, I would challenge, the US's interests in any place in the world are transitory. It depends on what their next target is. We were good enough during the Great Game. We were good enough when it came to the, the 9/11.
So this is the normal. Whenever we say that we have the transactional relationship, this is the normal.
So as an economist, there were many people, Mehtab here the other day, saying boom bust cycle, boom bust cycle. Well, let's go back. This boom bust cycle links to when the US needs us and when it doesn't need us.
Very right. General Saab, so we should accept this fact that we would always have the transactional relationship with the United States of America. Whenever our interests align, we would be closer. Whenever not, then we would have the same situation as we have seen in the last so many years. Would you agree with that? And that should also be incorporated in our policy whenever our policymakers would define our, America policy towards America.
I think the policy makers of Pakistan are very well aware of all this. We have seen this happening in the past, when we were members of CETO and CENTO, and thereafter what happened, the kind of sanctions they were imposed upon us, some of which are still there. But we surely know it's not only the policy makers, but the people of Pakistan, how to protect our national interests, no matter what the international environment is. And I think the United States government and other countries, they also know about it. What I want to point out really is that what has been offered to Modi Saab is actually reinforcing the policies and of where Indian nuclear and missiles capabilities are already in the wrong hands of the RSS, extremists uh, who are threatening Pakistan time and again, and which showed it to us in 2022. If you recall, in March, they fired ballistic missile Prithvi towards Pakistan and said this was fired by mistake. They endangered, the at least 10 international airlines which were flying then at that time, in the region, but they conveniently forgot those also. So I think the United States needs to understand what they are doing by supporting a regime, which is an extremist regime, and actually it is capable of doing anything. And if it does that, then I think nobody will be able to control it. What it is doing is also against the MTCR and the NPR, nuclear weapons being offered to India, latest AI being offered to India, and also nuclear reactors, and the latest equipment, including AI capabilities.
But General Saab,
All this.
you are absolutely right, General Saab. You are absolutely right, and I'm not questioning whatever you are saying. But the point is that obviously United States should think before making all these decisions. But obviously, it would not listen to the logic as you are referring to. The point is, we as a country, how should we be ready and respond to all this, happening around us?
Well, I already answered this question, that we are aware of it. We know how to defend ourselves, how to protect our national security with our existing resources. We have demonstrated it to India and the whole world that we can do that. And it is not only, as you were asking,
Right.
the other panelists about economic power alone. The United States is doing that, for political purposes. It is doing that for religious purposes in the Middle East in particular, and also, military purposes. And I think what is perplexing is that if there is advice given to them, then they do not take that advice seriously, which is why I think they did not fare well in their many wars in Afghanistan and elsewhere in the world.
Very right. Thank you very much, General Raza Muhammad Khan Saab, for joining us in the program. And while we were talking to you, we were also joined by Mustafa Hyder Sayyed, known analyst and person. Thank you so much, Mustafa, for joining us in the program. Dr. Ayesha, the question is, this defense deal between USA and India, if it's really a threat for Pakistan, how should we respond to it? Then the main question.
Well, the defense relationship of India and Pakistan is not something new. It has been going on for good almost 3 decades now, when United States of America changed its approach towards South Asia, and it sort of decoupled the both of our nations from USA looking at Pakistan and India as a paradox. So when all this changed, Pakistan's response has not been appropriate enough to counter this challenge. So I think it is very much related to to how economically we are related with United States of America. Look at the parity which USA and India are achieving with each other in economic field. There are 163 companies, Indian companies, which are operating, providing services in United States of America, and there has been an inward inflow of FDI, as I said earlier, from USA to India. So how far have we gone
No, but
to
we are
strengthen
not questioning.
ourselves?
We are not questioning
but the problem
the growing
is,
economic ties between the two countries. What we
Yeah.
are questioning is the defense cooperation,
Yes.
which would definitely
the recent
start a new
focus,
arm race in the region.
recent, yeah, it of course would destabilize the deterrence which has been in place, and strategic stability of South Asia is a very open question for everyone here. But if you look at it, the recent defense developments in the Indo-US relations are with regards to technological advancement in all its economic fields. So India and USA, they are also partner at this Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, where there are 4 pillars: clean energy and the green energy. So AI initiatives is also a very current thing. So if you are taking AI and technological initiatives from the economic field and applying it to the defense field,
Obviously.
where is Pakistan standing there?
All right. Before coming to you, Amer, let's see what Mustafa has to say on this particular question. We are talking about this growing romance between India and USA, especially after the President Trump took over the White House. The question is that how should we respond? We have carved new alliances, new friendships. Our old friendship with China is touching new heights. So how should we respond? Is our response enough at the moment or no?
Great question, Shahzad bhai, but I don't think we should be very surprised by this state visit of President Modi, and he's one of the first few leaders that has actually had an audience with Trump after him taking office. This partnership of the United States and India has been there for a while, and there is bipartisan support on the decision to closely strategically partner with India and South Asia. And there are multiple reasons for that, as we know. Number one is to counter China and to empower India economically, technologically, and militarily as a counterweight in this region. And that's been happening for a very long time. If you look at the US national security strategy, which was unveiled during the first term of President Trump, in that, in the South Asia section, it was emphasized categorically that the United States will empower India economically and militarily and choose it as a preferential partner in this region, and it said in the Indian Ocean, so which means our Arabian Sea. So this is a choice that the United States made a long time ago to choose India as its most preferred partner in this region, which is definitely at the opportunity cost of Pakistan. And that's your question, whether our security interests are, whether we should be concerned, whether is it at our cost, this new romance, as you put it. So yes, I think our interests are clearly affected, and the joint statement refers to us, unfortunately, in a negative light. And the weapons that India has purchased are vis-a-vis Pakistan, and particularly the maritime Arabian Ocean, and we have Gwadar and Karachi, and it can target submarines which are well below the under the water and whatnot. So I think that we have to have internal clarity firstly in order to understand how we should deal with the United States with this new administration. First, we should have internal clarity.
Don't we have it?
And we should not have misplaced expectations. I feel that sometimes we have strategic ambiguity and a strategic fog, if I may call it, into and sometimes we hear a lot of people saying we have to balance the big powers, whether it's China and the United States.
Right.
So I think that we should be very clear that we have a tactical relationship with the United States. It's an important relationship. The United States is a very important actor on the world stage. It's still the #1 superpower. We have to deal with them, engage, and mitigate the damage from Prime Minister Modi's visit diplomatically. But strategically, they are not aligned with our national interests. And I think that we have to engage other partners, whether it's China, whether it's Central Asia countries, whether it's other partners, accordingly.
Very right. Ahmed Durrani Sahab, the thing is, how can Pakistan ally their concerns? For instance, in a joint statement, Pakistan was once again urged to take concrete steps against terrorism. The Pakistan has and is taking steps against terrorism. As I mentioned, the UNSC report, which says that from Afghanistan, TTP conducted 600 plus attacks inside Pakistan. So we are fighting this war for more than 2 decades. So how can exactly we satisfy the superpowers that we are doing exactly the same thing what you are asking us to do in our own interest, of course?
Well, let me talk about this very openly. But for once, let you know, when you have a fight, let's assume for a second India is a bully. Let's assume for a second on national television that US is a bully. Now, let's say 2 bullies come, you have a seat. Both the bullies know that if they do a war of words and call you names, you are going to get up and beat them up or try to beat them up. What does that do? It leaves that space empty for the bullies to come in. So I think the first principle of foreign policy that Pakistan forgets and keeps forgetting is that India is no longer simply Pakistan-centric. China is a reality for India. It has always been a reality for India. That is why we gave oxygen and all these, is China being afraid of India. So let's get this right, that for every person that we can lose, India can lose 10. I mean, simply population numbers. But so the real war is China-India. And now the war is China-US. So what does Pakistan do? Pakistan needs to create some support for itself in its immediate neighborhood. And by that I mean Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey, right? The contiguity of this landmass enables us to have a defense strategic posturing, which if we actually try for, we can do. Central Asia, so very good. Even an alliance with Russia, which we are slowly forging, could not do us harm. Now it's fantabulous that this rules-based order, within this order, India is still buying Russian oil. Right? While the US came, I mean, why was not that mentioned? You see, it's again
India
that
is
position.
also going to buy the US oil now.
Now they will buy the US oil and it will be shale oil. I mean, but anyways, let's get to the point that the oil hasn't risen. In fact, with everything happening and the fact even that the fossil fuel ain't going nowhere mantra, as you see with Chevron and all the big oil giants. So the thing is, people expected the oil price to rise, but production has been increased simultaneously, right? And US already has spare production. So these things need to be taught. The problem in our foreign policy thought pieces, we are very India-centric. Every time that bully gets up, we get excited. And that excitement, it changes our mindset.
We are living in a very difficult neighborhood. Look at the region. I mean, we are surrounded by the countries which are really not, we are very hostile to us. So obviously that
That's how
many
it
a
is.
times
That's how it is with
It's
rest
going to
of the
be
world
100 years
also.
soon. Huh? Let's get that straight. We have always been living. We will always live. Countries can't up and move and say, okay, I just got rich.
Of course, you
move me to
cannot
a
change
rich
your
neighborhood.
neighbors.
Yeah, you can't change your neighbors. Not like we can do in an urban environment or even in a village, right? So have we not learned to live with this neighborhood? Stop complaining about it. Start living with it. This is what Pakistan needs to do. We do not think, we always think that we're going to win a war.
Would you like to share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's very monolithic, the foreign policy approach. It's very monotonous. We are probably afraid of diversifying our aspects. And as Amer Saab is today talking a lot about indigenous episteme, as I say it. So indigenous discourses and indigenous development of the region, but Pakistan needs to change its approach.
Full respect to Amer Saab, but look at the joint statement after the meeting. I mean, the statement did not mention China at all. I mean, of course, both USA and India, they had severe and strong differences with China, be the trade rivalry or anything else. But there was a specific mention of Pakistan. So when there was a specific mention of Pakistan at that important platform, obviously that we would respond to that, and obviously
that's why it was done. I'm trying to explain to you.
There was an argument by probably Mr. Mustafa about how we are balancing this relationship of Pakistan with the great powers. So that's also another aspect to all these dynamics.
No, I was actually saying, madam, that there is a lot of talk that we should balance, and I was saying that we should have internal clarity strategically, that
That's
who are our
absolutely
strategic
right.
partners in the long
Absolutely
term,
right.
and who are our tactical partners, because of course we have to engage with everyone in this neighborhood. We can't.
But don't you think that India is always going to be the main component of our foreign policy? No.
Shahzad sir, I think India has definitely has not digested the existence of Pakistan. That is definitely for sure. They have a huge bee in their bonnet regarding Pakistan. But I think that we need to have more confidence in ourselves. We need to be more calmer. We need to have faith in ourselves. We need to know that one joint statement cannot shake us. You know, we are a country of 250 million people, and we have a lot going for us.
But we have all the right to react to such a stupid
We should
statement.
react, but I think rather than reactions, we should have a strategic plan, a long-term strategy on how to engage. If you quantify, if you go by AI, for example, if you do a little bit of data crunching, this is all expected. These algorithms are expected. There is, as I said, that there is bipartisan support for India, and India will always try to insert Pakistan in any joint statement with any big power, including the United Nations, and it has. But I'll give you an example. We are in the UN Security Council right now as a temporary member. We had a chance very recently, we had the platform, we made some remarks. Why didn't we expose India at that, on that platform? Why were we hesitant? Why didn't we pull that punch? We reserved that punch. We could have taken that opportunity to go for India of the human rights abuses in Maqbooza Kashmir and occupied Kashmir, within interference of terrorism, sponsored terrorism by India within Pakistan and Balochistan, etc. So I think we, rather than reacting, is I think what all of three of us are actually saying is, rather than mere reactions, we need to have strategic foresight that is implemented, that is continued and followed up methodically in the coming months, years, without revolving our rhetoric around a certain event. This event, it's age of new media, this event will be old news by tomorrow morning. But we need to have a strategy where we are mindful of the realities, we shouldn't have misplaced expectations, and we move forward accordingly.
I'm glad you raised that topic, and as I mentioned in the beginning, that recently there is a report by UN Security Council about what Taliban regime is doing in Afghanistan, how they are backing and sponsoring non-state actors like TTP. So you think that we should also take this opportunity to not only this report, but there are several other reports in the past, but we really cannot get full benefits of all this content generated by one of the most, I will say, the credible organization in the world.
I think that, frankly speaking, we haven't taken it forward. We have a lot of evidence. We have a lot of empirical evidence. We arrested a serving Indian officer who had crossed over from Chabahar, Kulbhushan Yadav. We should have taken it to the International Court of Justice. We should have taken it to multiple platforms. We have excellent diplomats. We have embassies. We have we have the wherewithal. We have decent institutions for a third world country, frankly speaking. But we, apart from a presser or a little bit of hue and cry, we didn't have a professional way of taking it forward.
So what's stopping us in doing so?
I think keeping our eye on the ball and having internal continuity and a basic bare minimum level of stability. Because when we have internal fault lines, and because of that, sometimes we drop the ball on our external targets.
Any last thought on this, Mr. Amer?
No, I think I agree with that 100%. I think this whole narrative in Pakistan needs to change. It must change now. And one thing Pakistan should realize is that if it thinks it has such an important position, instead of every time jumping up and allowing people to occupy your chair, you should sit down and contemplate and introspect as to what needs to be done in the future. And believe me, we are going to get very isolationist. We're going to start chest beating if we don't do that in the next 5 to 10 years, because the world is not stopping for Pakistan. Pakistan has to think how it can find a place in the 21st century world.
And how should we begin? Where should we begin?
Keeping up with your identity. Identify yourself, please.
Identify as?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just rationalize your identity, because we as a nation probably failed massively on this front. how to rationalize yourself as a state, as a nationhood, and then probably have a foreign policy which would have a diversified approach.
100%.
So
China
that's
has one,
probably
India has one,
that's
everybody.
wanna
probably
say
going to
something
be.
on this?
I'll give you an example of South Africa. They believed in something. They have a very strong historical stance for Palestine. They've taken Israel to the international court, and they've gotten a judgment in their favor, and they are sticking by that. They are also, a country that needs to have good relations with big powers. But we have to believe in ourselves. We need to assert ourselves, and once we believe in that and respect ourselves, others will also respect us,
Very
and
right.
we will have our place in the 21st century, like Durrani Sahib has just said.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa Hyder Sayyed, Amer Durrani Saab, and Dr. Ayesha Malik for joining the show. Thank you very much, viewers, for watching the show. So far from me, thank you very much, and Khuda Hafiz.